When the European Union unveils its long-term budget proposals next week, it won't just be a numbers game. It will ignite one of the most explosive budget battles in EU history. From supporting struggling farmers to defending its borders and repaying pandemic-era debt, the EU must now choose where to tighten the belt and where to throw its weight. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is preparing to unveil the EU's new budget blueprint for 2028 to 2034. The last budget, 2021 to 2027, was already a massive one, that is 1.2 trillion euros. Funded by national contributions and EU-generated revenues like custom duties, it equaled roughly 1% of the bloc's gross national income. But this time, the stakes are even higher. The European Parliament has already signalled one thing. It wants more money. More for security, more for competitiveness, and more to prepare the EU for future economic shocks. But how do you increase spending while trying to cut ballooning deficits? Security will be front and center, with the war in Ukraine dragging on and NATO pushing members to spend up to 5% of their national output on defense. The EU is under pressure to act, even though it legally can't fund military operations directly. That's where dual-use infrastructure comes in. Think roads, bridges, and logistic networks. Civilian projects that can serve military purposes in wartime. A €100 billion fund to support Ukraine is also on the table, though EU officials say the final number could still change before the proposals are announced on Wednesday. Von der Leyen says the EU will support Ukraine until 2028 and beyond, a bold promise, but one that comes with a hefty price tag. But security isn't the only pressure point. Farmers across Europe are sharpening their pitchforks literally. The Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP, takes up the biggest share of the EU's budget, roughly €387 billion, with €270 billion going directly into farmers' pockets. But now that very system could face its biggest shake-up yet. The EU is considering putting a cap on how much a single farm can receive, and even shifting funds away from large landowners to smaller, greener farms. Experts predict CAP's share of the budget will shrink further, but farmers are drawing red lines. COPA, the powerful EU farming lobby, say they are ready for a fight. Farmers plan to protest outside the Commission building this Wednesday, raising fears of a repeat of last year's massive demonstrations. There's another major question. Should the agriculture budget remain separate or be merged into broader cohesion funds, allowing member states to decide how to spend it? France, the biggest beneficiary of CAP, says absolutely not. They want to preserve the dedicated farming budget, and they are not alone. Shifting power away from Brussels back to national capitals could appease some, but it could also spell chaos for long-standing EU unity on food security and rural development. Now, the elephant in the room, debt. The EU borrowed a staggering €800 billion during the COVID-19 pandemic to save its economy. And now, starting in 2028, the bill comes due. Annual repayments could go up to €30 billion. So how will the EU pay for all this? France and Italy are pushing for more joint borrowing. But that's a red flag for Germany and the so-called frugal states, Finland, Sweden, and the Netherlands. One proposal, an emergency mechanism allowing the EU to raise grants or loans during crisis. But diplomats say it keeps getting added and deleted from drafts. Other ideas include taxing digital services or even small packages entering the EU from outside, but none of these are guaranteed to plug the hole. From furious farmers to ambitious defense goals, from looming debt repayments to bitter fights over who foots the bill, the EU's 2028-2034 budget isn't just a spreadsheet. It's a ticking time bomb for Europe's political unity. Will Brussels find a compromise? Or will national interests tear the bloc apart at the seams? One thing is certain, Europe's future is on the negotiation table.